Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That is Jack. I'm Conrad, and this is the Footy 5. We are here with our Week 7 best guess, plus a couple of other topics. Thus far, I'm on a bit of a bad run of form. Jack has caught up and surpassed
It's all
me.
that intelligence. I'm finally beginning to showcase it.
Could be a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again. I'm not doing good. All right. So we start with United home to Arsenal. United 8th place, 8 points. Arsenal up 4 on them with 11 points. The Arsenal will make the 196-mile trek from the north side of London to Old Trafford in the heart of Manchester. Where,
as an American, it doesn't seem like it should be that far away, but 196 miles is it's no small trip.
halfway across the continent.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a big trip, and it's convenient for a great game, honestly.
I think you get to the long ones where you're going down to Brighton or you're going to Norwich across the continent.
Portsmouth, when they used to be
obviously,
good,
but
not anymore.
Yeah. Chelsea for Life 31 has called this El Sacico, which I think is really funny. I also think it's somewhat misleading.
If you did have to pick two of the top 6 managers who would be on the hottest of hot seats, you'd probably say these two guys first. There's more trust in Poch, and it's the very beginning of Lampard's reign.
Maybe.
Exactly.
I think it's too early for this to be on. It's not on Ole's
way
shoulders.
too early for everyone to have this kind of pressure, in my opinion, because I don't think that rash decision making has gotten teams that far that often. And I hope that Arsenal and United stay the course and believe in it, because I think there's still potential and there's a lot of improvement being shown, because both teams are incredibly young and they have a lot of potential, but you got to be able to have a good, consistent manager to be able to utilize that.
Well, I think Arsenal will be. They're in for a shot in the arm here with some folks getting healthy, which should help them. But this is an interesting matchup. De Gea's come out in support of Solskjaer, which is good. I mean, I think you want to see that coming from some of your club leaders. Ton of stuff from Solskjaer this morning, talking about the culture, talking about, yes, it's a young club, there's going to be bumps, we're not going to be all that great at times, but what he sees in training, the work rate, the trust that these kids have in one another, the way they're playing in these midweek matches, the Europa, the Carabao Cup, they're going to be good.
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard for United supporters to look long term, right? Because they're so used to. Now they've been mediocre.
There's
for
always
6 or
been
7
that
seasons
expectation,
through
even
4.
when their performances haven't been there. There's been that expectation that hasn't gone away, and it should never go away. You're Manchester United. You're one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club in all of football. You should never settle for anything less than dominance. And unfortunately, they have been in recent years. That's the only way to say it.
Yeah, it's not been great, but again, they've got a long-term project, and they've got 2 or 3 windows before you can really
100%.
judge how Solskjaer is doing.
As well.
Arsenal, meanwhile, they're about to get revitalized. Bellerin, Holding, Tierney, all returning. Probably not all ready for 90. I think Bellerin is probably going to come on late. I don't think he's going to start. All 3 of these guys did make appearances in the midweek match, the Carabao Cup. But if you take Chambers, you plug him alongside Holding, Arsenal fans won't need to avert their eyes every time Socrates and Ruiz touch the ball. That makes a huge difference.
And I think if you look at those 3 guys, except for maybe Holding, you can still make an argument for him that those are the 3 best guys in their positions for that club, and they're still very good comparatively. If you're talking about Tierney and Bellerin, they're not. I would say they're probably both top 5 right backs and left backs in the Premier League. So it's a huge get for them to get them back healthy, and so it's just, as you mentioned, a shot in the arm. It's going to be bolstering them, and it's going to make them much more secure, because Arsenal haven't been as bad as their performances have been letting on. And United, however, have a whole host of injuries. It's almost like the roles have reversed a bit going into this game.
Yeah, well, they're not quite as bad as what Chelsea have been going through, but it's not been good, to say the least. But touching back on Holding, he's 24 years old. He was doing really, really well before the injury. I think he's going to be very, very good for them for a very long time, given his age, and he is a good leader. We'll talk a little bit about leadership later. But to your point, Pogba, Jones, Martial. Martial sounds like a question
Yeah.
mark. Pogba had re-injured, injured that ankle in the PK win in midweek over Rochdale. Rashford out. Shaw potentially back, which means he's talking about putting Mason Greenwood in the match for his full Premier League debut. I don't. Here's the interesting thing about this match. United can't score. They've scored 8 matches. There's 8 goals in 6 matches, and Arsenal can't defend. They've let in 10 in 6, which is the 5th worst. So what happens
one of
when
them have to do
a very
better or worse than the
resistible
other.
force? You have a very resistible force meeting a very movable object, and who wins?
Exactly.
I just.
See, that's why it was a weirdly tough game to call, because United are at home. Old Trafford is still a tough place to go, especially for Arsenal. They're not the best team on the road, but United just lack the talent right now, and they lack the ability up front. And I feel like my prediction might be a little goal heavy, but I think that I see it a lot. Martial scored in that game against Liverpool at Old Trafford, and everyone was screaming, "This is the next big thing." Rashford,
He's gonna be great.
Yeah,
He's gonna be
Rashford
great.
scored against Midtjylland, I believe, in the Europa League, and everyone's screaming, "This is gonna be great. This is gonna be great." Greenwood is doing a very similar thing. It's like United fans, not to say that they shouldn't believe in the talent of him, because I think Greenwood's very good. I think if out of those 3 guys at this point in time, he's probably the best one out of the 3 of them. But he is going to, I think, have a big impact. I think he's going to score a goal, maybe even 2 in this game. But I think it's going to be a share of the points. I just don't think Arsenal have enough to push through away at United yet.
I see this decisively to Arsenal, 3-1. You've got it as a draw. It's all going to depend upon who starts in defense for Arsenal and what they do in their midfield.
very
right?
much.
And we'll talk a little bit about that later. Guendouzi's been very, very good, but he lacks a little bit of discipline.
Yeah.
But he's, and that's where you need, Torreira or Xhaka, whoever is going to be that holding midfielder to allow him to do that. But Arsenal can score, and United are good defensively, not great, but I think Arsenal's going to take this.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game. El Sacco.
So who are you really? We've got Villa 4 points in 18th, and Burnley 8 points, 9th place. Again, this is Villa traveling from Villa Park, Midlands, to north of Manchester to Turf Moor in the heart of Burnley. 121 miles. Again, these trips are so short. This is like moving around the Midwest or moving around, New England. It's crazy how short these trips are. We did not make it to Villa Park, but there it is. We drove past it. I think that's the A38 when we stayed one night in Birmingham when we went and saw the match at Wolves. But that shirt, that away shirt that Villa has, it's probably maybe a second only. I don't know. It's a toss-up between the Liverpool away or the 3rd jersey, the black and white. But this jersey is so beautiful. Up close.
I thought you were going to say the Liverpool white jersey. They have some good jerseys this year, but
the white jersey,
the
white
white jersey for Liverpool.
Yeah, not that black thing.
And then that jersey for Villa. Those are just some. You enjoy watching them when they're out on the field wearing those.
The Villa kits are, generally speaking, that claret and blue are just gorgeous. Like, that's unbelievable. Anyhow, so Sean Dyche maybe throwing a little shade here at Villa. They have a different model, over 100 million.
Shade. This is
And I'm interested to see how they go as they sit with 4 points. I just think, look, Burnley are a miserable team to play against. They are physical. They are good on the counter. They have 10 guys defending, and this would bring back Socrates' commentary about comparing Liverpool and Burnley defenses.
I think that time has only proven him more right. Burnley are tough to play against. They're not fun to play against. I would say they're obviously worse than Liverpool, but they're not. They're probably equally as uncomfortable to play against because of their style of play.
And it's a team like Villa who have struggled holding onto the ball and linking up passes. Their midfield has not been what it needs to be. That doesn't bode well for a Villa side when you have a team like Burnley that defend with 10 guys, right? Not necessarily all behind the ball, but they are physical and they love to defend with all 10.
It'll be fascinating to see how Villa do.
Meanwhile, Tom Heaton but playing against his former team. 6 years he was at Burnley. Played in Europe with them, helped them get promoted. Then 4 years in the Premier League with
Yeah.
Burnley. Interesting, return. A lot of stuff being said about Dean Smith and decision making. A lot of interesting stuff from him today in his press conferences. But I think, again, much like Solskjaer, you just got to let these guys figure out how to play in the Premier League and see if his system's going to work.
100%. 100%. You just gotta give them some time, and it's more less applicable to the sides that have less security in the Premier League. Because Villa, I think we believe they're going to stay up, but there's no guarantee of that. This is their first year back, so obviously you have to have less patience because of the financial stakes in this. But you got to give them time to get you a long-term vision established. They have spent a lot of money on this team. Money doesn't always equate to success or permanence in the Premier League, which is a dangerous thing. And it's just going to be really fascinating to see how they deal with this, because I also read a really interesting article in the Athletic about Graham Taylor back in the 90s when he was the manager of Wolves, and they spent a ton of money. He spent about £9 million over 2 seasons, which is a ton of money back in the 90s. And that was when they were in the championship, and they failed to get promoted. And ultimately, people wondered, well, what would have happened if they didn't fire him so prematurely in November? Because after that job, he went to Watford, took them from the 3rd division all the way to the Premier League. So people are saying, well, what could have happened if you gave them more time? And that's the theme, I think, for a lot of these managers. What could have happened if you gave them more time?
Yep.
There's also the argument, if you gave them more time, it could have gotten worse. So it's really, the stakes are so high, and I think that Dean Smith is the right guy. So I don't think the panic button should be pushed just yet for Villa.
The one thing you do see comment-wise from some of the supporters is just that they don't like his decision-making late in matches. You have 2 matches that are contrast to one another. The win over Brighton in the Carabao Cup, where they had 9 changes, brought in a bunch of guys that didn't play on Sunday, won that match. It was very, in Dean Smith's words, very professional result, right? They played very, very well. But then you have the Arsenal match we talked about last week, where they didn't press. They were against a 10-man Arsenal.
They failed to capitalize that game. They should have
just
pushed forward, but they didn't. And that was their ultimate downfall.
And they should have gotten the penalty. Socrates that was clear handball. Should have gotten that penalty. Guendouzi, maybe that shouldn't have been a penalty, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things have gone their way or not gone their way. And really, more things haven't gone their way, so they're due.
But at the end of the day, you didn't get the points. He says that you were better than every team except for Tottenham, but you haven't gotten points against many of these teams. So it's a question of, are you better than them, but you can't put goals in the back of the net, and you can't put more in the net than your opponent does. And that's ultimately it's a results game, and they haven't gotten the results yet. So they got to translate these good performances into actual results.
Yeah. No, they've got to prove. So this is interesting. Burnley have proven that they belong in the Premier League, right? They have played well over 7 seasons. Dyche has been there. Villa need to prove that they deserve to stay up and that they're back, right? And this is a very important, game for them. The Arsenal loss was rough. Midweek win over Brighton, good. Tough, physical, experienced team in Burnley. They've got Norwich and Brighton next. Again, more great opportunities for points, and then they've got City and Liverpool. So these next 3 matches, they've got to maximize their point tallies from these, or they could. I mean, it would be that you're going to be sitting on 10 matches at that point, 12, and they need to take points these next 3 matches, for sure. And that said, I've got them taking points. You don't.
Yeah, I think the big difference is I like Burnley a lot. I think they've proven that they are the team of 2 years ago, not of last year. They finished 7th 2 years ago versus a much more dismal bottom half finish last year. They have, I think, a great defensive structure. They have a guy who's scoring a ton of goals in Chris Wood, and that's always a good recipe for whenever you're going away from home in the Premier League. I think Villa are still figuring things out. I don't think this is doom. I already mentioned, I don't think that it's time to push panic button yet, but I think that Burnley have a better chance on this game.
We shall see. I've been wrong way too many times lately. That brings us to the battle in the basement. You got the 2 teams on 4 and 2 points, very bottom without wins. We'll touch on that in a second. At the Molineux, so Watford will take the 119-mile trip from Vicarage Road to the Molineux in Wolverhampton, where we were. These are 2 photographs. We got tickets with friends who are Liverpool supporters who went to this match, so we had to go through the
Turnstiles.
away turnstiles, which is some of the most intimidating
yeah.
things I've ever been through in my life. Not meant for 6'5" human beings, and nor are these seats meant for 6'5" human beings. Thankfully, we were standing the entire time, so it wasn't a problem.
Fun time.
But that would have been knees squarely in the back of the poor person.
Oh yeah,
in front
it
of
would
us.
have.
Anyhow, oops, wrong way. Sorry. So this was from week 3, where the W teams don't have a W.
And
right, I found this and I was like, looking at the date, I was like, oh, that was 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
it's still relevant, still accurate.
Except that Kike Sanchez Flores
Yeah,
is now
that's the only wrong part about this tweet. Other than that, aged perfectly for
bad
Squawk.
Photoshop. It's great, yeah, exactly. The W's without a W.
Exactly.
So that, and that may not change. You could end up with a draw here. Big number, 18 goals conceded by Watford. Granted, 8 of them were against a very pissed off Man City side. And Man United, as we said, have only scored 8 goals in 6 matches. And they gave up 8 in one.
Yeah, same for Arsenal, as a matter of fact, as well. Arsenal only scored 8, as last I checked. And that was what the funny part was. City have scored as many goals in one game as United and Arsenal scored in all their other games this season so far.
And this is only the 3rd time this has happened in the first 6 Premier League matches of the season. That's not a good thing. But this is Flores, Kike's statement. I've never been in the bottom of the league before, but let's go win. I like the players. I like the squad. But this, look, I've said this probably 2 times now. Wolves need to win this one, but really, Wolves need to win this one. And they need to win it big. They're at home against a winless side who can't score, and if you can't beat Watford at home under those circumstances, you got some stuff to
And that's
figure out.
exactly how we predict this game. You got to win this game. A little more sizable on my end, but I think that
5-1.
I think it's going to be.
I can see
I
it.
think Watford are not secure defensively. They're not that good, and Wolves need to get a rebound win. This is that win for them, I think.
They got to get their first win. They've made 10 changes in their Carabao Cup match, so they'll have fresh legs coming in. Romain Saiz will be back after his 1-match ban. Welbeck may be fit for the Hornets, but that guy is an injury waiting to happen. So I don't know that he'll start. They may bring him on late. Who knows? But again, both of us have Wolves getting their first win, moving to 7 points, and maybe out of the basement, depending upon how some of these other things happen. Moving on to a couple of other things. It's so Spursy. So Spursy. And this is, I don't know if this is about Spurs or Pochettino. A little bit of both. I guess you can't talk about one without the other. But this is his quote after losing 2-1 to Leicester. He's like, I get more relaxed because it's just one game. But it's been 13 of their last 26 that they've lost, right? And that includes making a Champions League final and losing. So they're winning the right matches to get that opportunity. But 8-5-13 is a terrible way to go through the last 26
And 2-3-3
matches.
this year. I think that for Spurs, there's a middle ground between saying the manager needs to go and you need to change things. He needs to change things. He does not need to go. Pochettino is still the right guy for Spurs, and they would make a grave mistake by having a knee-jerk reaction and firing him. Yeah, it hasn't been a great start to the season, but you got to stick with him. I believe that he is by far their best chance and by far one of their best assets. And he still is the right man for the job. He has confidence in himself, and it's well-deserved.
And if the pressure is on him, right? He's got to figure out how to get this team playing together, right? They're not on the same page just yet, following the problems that they had with Eriksen wanting out and some of these other things. But he's almost feels like he's in spin mode, right? Yeah, I am the right guy, right?
Not a lot of security in North London right now, especially after the captaincy call over there on Arsenal, which did frustrate a lot of people.
Captain Granit Xhaka. Captain? So this came out this morning. Jack texted me. It's like 7:30 on your way to your 8 a.m. class. Like, they named Xhaka captain. And I don't know. Here's exactly what I texted back. I'm not sure if there's ever been as wide a perception gap as there is between dressing room and supporters. Teammates love him. Supporters can't stand him. But I just don't think he's good enough, given the other options they have, to play. Not necessarily be captain, but to play.
Here's the thing. It's mentioned in the Winter tweet. He needs to step up his game if he's going to maintain his captaincy, because as a captain, you got to be out on the field week in, week out. Yeah, it's important to have that locker room atmosphere, but it's even more important to have a guy who you can trust on the field. Because a captain, you think of who were legendary captains: Roy Keane, Steven Gerrard, guys who on the field were warriors and they led your team on the field, not just off of it. Because that's a big facet of captaining, but another part is being one of your best players. And if you were to list the best players on Arsenal, you'd be listing quite a few before you hit Granit Xhaka. So it's a question.
Yes.
I doubt the leadership ability that he has and the vocal ability that he has, but the talent is questionable, and that's what he has to improve on.
And the temperament.
100%.
Like, he's just... And I haven't necessarily seen that improve. He hasn't been tossed yet, but he's given up penalties.
Yeah.
And just in bad situations. Look, Emery clearly sees something. He's talked to the players in that dressing room, and he's making a decision that he feels is in the best interest of that club, based on what his players are telling him. And he could give a rat's patoot about what the supporters say. And that's clear. That's great, because that's what he needs to do. Don't listen to the likes of us or fans or whomever, supporters. But
It's tough.
he's not liked by
Fans.
Emery's already on shaky ground with the supporter base. This does not help endear him to them, but again, we shall see.
We
whether
shall
this
see
works out or
is
not.
the phrase, the hot phrase for this episode.
But Torreira is better than him. Should be playing alongside Guendouzi to let him bomb forward and do what he's really good at.
Honestly, real quick,
I don't know.
simple solution for me. Midfield trio: Torreira at the base, Xhaka and Guendouzi. Xhaka can't bring the ball forward that well, but it's a very defensive base and it allows you to play Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Pepe up front.
What do you do with Ceballos?
He's on loan. I'm not as concerned about Ceballos because it's like, oh yeah, you can just go back to Madrid. Like, I'm not that concerned about his future.
Or he's just a super
Exactly,
sub
or he's just
every
super
60th
sub.
minute. He
Exactly.
comes in.
I think that they need to include Torreira more, and it should not be at the expense of Xhaka. And the fact that he's captain does not bode well for that idea.
Yeah, I don't know. We shall see. Yes, we have said that. I sound like a broken record. But anyhow, take a look. Find us on Twitter at the45. Please like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate it. For Jack, Conrad, this has been the 45. Take care now.